Boker Tov, and we really were supposed to fill today with Simcha. It's an incredible challenge to think about what to share by way of introduction in the context of the tragedy that happened last night in Meron. I want to share one thought, and I want to tell you an incredible story from Israel. So first of all, let's understand that Lag BaOmer is supposed to be a time of Simcha. It is supposed to be a time in which the Avelut ends. The Avelut that we have been mourning in the context of the death of the Talmidim Rabbi Kiva, it's supposed to be over. Lag BaOmer is supposed to be a time in which the Avelus is finished, but yet we find ourselves that in many ways the Avelut is just starting. And in many ways the Avelut is now continuing. Some of us are close or have relationships or know of a boy from Shalavim, a graduate of MTA in New York, who unfortunately was nifter. I heard about somebody else from Montreal that people know about, and there are many people who we don't even know yet. And we're still trying to figure out who exactly was injured. And the names of people, you can find them online to say Tehillim for them. Incredible sadness, incredible tragedy on every level. So what do? So 3 thoughts. Number 1, the Rambam writes at the beginning of Hilchot Tanit, very, very beginning, first halacha, mitzvah aseh min haTorah lizok ulahariya bechatzrotzot al kol tzara shetavo al hatzibur. The Rambam talks about that any time a tragedy happens to a tzibur, everybody has to do something about it. He continues later on, he goes on to talk about doing some tshuva, being mefashfesh b'masav, looking into one's actions and seeing if there's something each person can do to try to better themselves in the context of what happened, recognizing that everything that happens is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's number 1. Number 2, I heard from one of my rebbeim this morning early from Rav Moshe Tarragon in Israel, who had the following suggestion that I thought was a beautiful suggestion. Meron, where this tragedy happened, the hills, the mountains are right by Tzfat. You could throw a stone and you could hit Tzfat. Tzfat is the place in which the Ari HaKadosh established, and all of these areas were sanctified by the Ari, the Kabbalah, the mysticism, the Tfilot that came from this, and chief among them was the Lechadodi Tfilah that we say on Kabbalat Shabbat. So Rabbi Tarragon suggested that everyone should have extra kavana, everyone should have extra intent when it comes to Tfilot tonight, specifically associated with Kabbalat Shabbos. So I'd like to take that suggestion and suggest it in a slightly way to all of you. I know that shuls are complicated to go to. I know that we have our requirements around 10 people per minyan. You have to sign up in advance. You have to register. You have to make sure that you've been checked. I'd like to make the suggestion that everyone try to go tonight to shul, to daven with a minyan. And if you can't, at least make sure you daven yourself at home or somewhere, and you give special kavanah by lechadodi, and have in mind all those people who unfortunately are either injured, all those people who were killed. Remember that every single one of them is a father, a son, a brother. Someone is mourning each of those individuals. So that's number 2. Number 3 comes from a very close friend of mine, Dov Meyer, who is in Israel right now. And I spoke to him, and he's told me the following story. It's absolutely amazing. He said, I woke up this morning and I said, what should I do? It's Friday. How should I use my time? What can I do? So he heard on the radio, he heard on the news, on the internet, that Magen David Adom said that they were a little bit low in terms of their blood banks. And they were encouraging people to come and donate blood. They imagined what was going to be necessary in terms of all the people who have been injured. And so he said, okay. So he drove into Jerusalem, into Yerushalayim, to try to donate blood. And he said he gets there and the line to donate was an hour and a half long just to be able to donate blood. And he said that wasn't even the most incredible thing. The most incredible thing was that who was online? No Haredim were online. We all know that in Meron, the people who were killed, the tragedy, again, I don't want to say across the board completely, but the vast majority were part of the Haredi community in Israel. And yet who's online to donate blood? Chilonim, women, men with ponytails, people who are religious, people who are not religious, Datzit Tzionit, Everybody. He said, I didn't see a single member of the Haredi community necessarily in that one spot, but there were kupot, there were places all over the country. In Kikar Rabin in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is a bastion of Chiloni society. It was packed with people wanting to donate blood. And what's incredible is that's the amazement of Am Yisrael and Klal Yisrael and how we come together as a people. You know, we all sometimes focus on the political realities in Israel and how they can't form a government because individuals can't sit together. And maybe that's something that we need to work on collectively as a community as well in Israel, that you have so many political parties that won't speak to each other and can't sit together. But at a time of tragedy, it doesn't matter who the tragedy happens to. They come together and we come together and the community comes together. And to me, that was just such an inspirational story. So number one, try to pick something that you can do. Le'ilui nishmat, those people who passed away, and as a zechut, a merit for their families. Pick a mitzvah, pick something small, number one. Number two, try tonight at Kabbalat Shabbos to have a special kavanah specifically focused on the Lechadodi prayer that was in many ways sanctified, created in the hills of Meron. And number three, recognize the concept of Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Bazeh, the Arvut, and how we all in many ways come together, how special that is, and how we have to make sure that we are a part of that. I think at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Lazar, and we're going to be saying some prakim of Tehillim.